the School of Art and Design at Eastern Michigan University. And as such, I'm really proud to say that two of the people who originated this whole event are current EMU graduate students, Sonia Craftston and Claire Moore. I'm really grateful to the two of them for the endless amount of energy that they have put into making this a really special night. Likewise, we have additional graduate students and alumni from the School of Art and Design at EMU as our guest artists tonight. Each of our 6 artists have made a piece of artwork in advance of this event. And we have posted those creations on our Riverside Art Center website. Those creations are available to y'all for a flat fee of $50 each for each artwork, and it's on a first come, first served basis. So we hope that you'll look at our website. Appreciate that. All of the proceeds that come in from donations for this event, as well as those sales, go directly to the Riverside Art Center to help us with the costs of operating the center, especially now, as you can imagine, which is a time of multiple challenges for us all. So we're really especially glad to be able to connect in this way. I really thank the artists for their time, their talents, and their treasures. They've given so generously to make this happen. Thank you. The spirit of this event has to do with how small gestures can have a really great impact. Our guest artists will show a portion of their process to you with humble materials that probably most of us have in our home, so that you can have a chance to maybe try those processes on yourself afterwards. We hope that one or two techniques will really catch your eye, and that you'll try your hand at making some work yourself in response to this event. If you do make a work after this event, we will be eager to post that work of yours, that image of yours, through our Facebook, through our social media, with your willingness and acceptance. And we hope that there'll be some interesting connections that continue to happen afterwards. Our website is riversidearts.org. So to look for that as a means for exhibiting your work in the future. Know that you can make something beautiful and meaningful in just 60 minutes. During the event, we ask that you write in your questions into the Q&A. We hope to have some opportunity to answer at least some of those questions. It might not happen until the end, after all 6 artists have had a chance to show their work. But we hope to answer some of those questions. And depending on what kinds of questions that come in, we might even post a sort of a Q&A after the event on either the Facebook or website, as well as a response to this event. And now I'm really proud to introduce my colleague from the art school at EMU. He is the printmaking professor, Brian Spolins. Brian.
Thanks, Sandra, and thanks to the RAC for having me do this. I'm really excited to act as moderator here for this and get to, my job is, I believe, just to ask questions that maybe you guys there at home are going to be asking yourselves and thinking about, and dig a little deeper. But I'm mostly just really excited to see what everybody's going to be making today. Before we jump into our first artist, I want to say thanks to everybody for coming out. Thanks for the RAC for hosting this event. I know that these are really trying times right now, and are pretty difficult, but I think it's really exciting that we're trying to do these cool things and trying new ways to make connections between everybody, the community, right, people. And yeah, I think what Sandra said earlier, that like beautiful things can be made in 60 minutes. And I think like just spending time on focusing on making something cool is like one of the best things that I do to make myself feel better or to feel great during these times. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our first artist, Claire Moore.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I am Claire Moore. I am an interdisciplinary artist and designer, and hopefully educator at some point someday. I'm currently a student at Eastern Michigan University. I'm getting my MFA at this point in time, and I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome, Claire.
Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys something I've kind of been playing with in my personal practice, which is using a lot of upcycled materials and sort of daily materials that we come in contact with, like packaging and simple utensils like Sharpies, things that we kind of have lying around the house, but we can make use of. So I'm just gonna flip my camera down here into my workspace. Alrighty. So this is one of my pieces for the show. It's comprised of those little air bubble shipping things, and like all this netting that comes with like potato bags and things like that, and some other found materials I have for my house. So I just kind of want to show you how I've been playing with this like sort of repetitive technique. So plastic has become kind of my favorite material because it is it's so plentiful. We have a ton of it lying around the house, generally most of us, and it's totally transparent, right? So you can use it to lay over top of existing drawings that you might have, which is something I've really been playing with. And I really like layering and repeating imagery because I think that kind of tells a little bit about my personal psyche at this point in time. But it's been really fun to sort of play with all this repeated quality here. So I'm just doing a quick drawing over top of another drawing I had initially done. And again, the plastic is awesome for this. Going through with my Sharpie. And this is actually a piece of a bag from a potato bag. So now I've got this little like drawn face here. And I had some pieces that I had assembled prior to our show here. So I have, you can see right here, I use the same face and made a drawing right here with that face. I have some gouache that I use on top of some scrap cardboard that I cut into. There's just some weird scraps of strings I had lying around. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and here's one that I made earlier as well. It's like, I use this cool like chalk marker. I don't know if you guys have ever used those, but they're fun. Mm-hmm. So I'm playing with that. And I think it would be really interesting, again, right? We're using these masks generally in our day-to-day lives right now. But I think it would be cool to sort of, maybe if I layer something here and I get this like interaction here, might be kind of cool. Another thing I've been playing with is painting into some of this. I don't know how many people know this, but plastic is really great, like in a lot of ways. I mean, it's terrible, but it's really great in a lot of ways. And it holds this acrylic paint super well. So if you let it dry, it will stay on there. I mean, I've been playing around with this a lot lately, and it just stays on there and it looks so cool. So now I'm just going in and kind of painting on top.
And the Sharpie stays on there too?
Yeah, Sharpie stays on there too. And you can totally, yeah, the Sharpie's awesome. Like, man, I've used other permanent markers and they just don't quite work as well, but Sharpies, like, they never let me down.
And you're just using regular acrylic paint now?
Yeah. Yep, this is just regular acrylic. And generally, you know, sometimes I might, like, once this dries, a really fun thing to do is to flip it over, and then, like, so you've got this great, like, you still have the Sharpie on top, and then it goes over, like, the paint that you paint under. So it's almost like an underpainting after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun. And
well,
then once you get...
I love it. And you can be looking at photos to making drawings from that too. So you don't really need drawing skills.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I've been using a lot of self-portraiture just because I feel like it's been, you know, important for me to express how I'm feeling lately. So that's been a really fun way to do that. And you can see there's like sort of this look of concern in this face here a little bit. Yeah, go figure, right? So yeah, this is kind of where I've been pushing my work, and like layering and repeated imagery is just really what I think I think works, apologies for the pups, works to make a really powerful piece for me personally. Another little tip I have is glue dots. They're like my go-to for adhesive because they're amazing. They'll stick forever if you want them to, but they also are really easy to remove.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you were
That,
sticking that material down. Is there any
yeah,
glue or other adhesives that you're using, or just these dots?
just glue dots. Right now, all of this is attached by glue dots, and I think the plastic seems to really like it. But yeah, they're just like cheap, and you can get refills, and it's really easy. They're really easy to use, and I just stick them right down. Plastic loves it, and acrylic's awesome because it dries quickly too, right? Like this is pretty much dry underneath here, so I just immediately layered it on there.
Claire, I feel like that mask is fruit stripe happy.
Yeah. This is actually this is actually material from the homemade masks I made for my husband and me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting, I've been trying to incorporate, like kind of like I said before, I've been trying to incorporate a lot of material from my daily use. Just because I feel like that makes the work a little bit more intimate. But yeah, it's funny that you say, I of course am drawn, if you know me personally, you know I love bright colors, and this is very telling of who I am, especially for a mask.
Well, this is great. I think we have like another minute or so before we're going to be switching to the next artist. I don't see any questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
But I'm loving seeing these dots together and how you're layering up to get different effects.
Cool.
What's really nice too is that because it is, who is that's interrupting us, Claire?
I'm so sorry. That's the little dog. That's Zoe Beans.
Hey, Zoe.
She just perked her ears.
You know, what's wonderful about it is like there's no like fear of losing out on plastic.
Yes, exactly right. It's like this material that we kind of just have around all the time anyway. And we probably would have thrown it away regardless. But, you know, at least in this way, I'm making something out of it.
Claire, there is one question to you before we send you off. Do you have any suggestions for how to mount or frame your work?
Yeah, so actually what I've been doing is, okay, now the other sister is chiming in. So actually what I've been doing is using wire, and I was saying this before in our other meeting that we've had, but I've been I just got my baby's first glue gun. So I've been using a glue gun and gluing, like I love cardboard because you can kind of shove it through the corrugated parts and it'll stay in, and then you glue that wire in and it mounts up really nice. Actually, that's how I did it. I've done it with a couple other pieces where it looks really cool, but yeah, I love the glue gun and the wire kind of aspect.
Well, I think the acrylic that you're using may work as an adhesive as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think Elmer's glue dries clear.
Yes.
Sometimes, right? As long as it's not too thick. But
yeah, that's a great suggestion, Brian.
Let's see. I got one more question for you, and then we're going to move on.
Cool.
Why did your star tell you to do that? That our star provides, in their family, they have a star that provides them with imagination. So what was your imagination? What led you?
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, why did my star tell me? You know, I think my star told me that I just need to find use for the materials that I've been coming into contact with every day, and making use out of these materials that we might have otherwise considered waste. And I think that gives them a different purpose, and it makes it more powerful to me to make the work out of stuff I'm using as well.
Thank you.
I think that's a perfect answer. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, guys.
It's so great to see you again. You know, I look forward to seeing you again soon. We're going to move on to our next panelist, which is our next artist, which is Dominique Canoni. Hey, Dominique.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Dominique Canoni. I'm in the MFA program at Eastern Michigan University. So today I'm going to show you guys how to do some hand printing with everyday objects. I have some objects here, or plants really, that I've collected within my yard. I like to explore my yard, and I like to save the plants, dry them out, and then use them for my artwork later. Um,
All right.
Sometimes when I'm feeling stuck and I don't really know where to start with a piece, I'll just grab an object that's around me and I'll go ahead and trace it. It's a really good way to just like go ahead and get started with making something. It can be intimidating. The blank white sheet can be intimidating sometimes. So
That's great.
I'll just start, tracing an object. I really like to use circles in my art practice. So I have some masking tape here that I'm tracing. And then I have the leaf here that I showed previously and some watercolor paint that I'm just going to go ahead and dip the leaf into.
So that's just watercolor that's been thinned down?
Yes. Yep. But you can use acrylic. You can use like calligraphy ink. I actually started the process with calligraphy ink and then worked my way into watercolor because of my love with watercolor.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead and firmly press the leaf on the paper to get a nice print. And you can like see the skeleton of the leaf, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So then I also have some the end of a sweet potato that I collected when I was cooking.
So these are just objects that are around you that you're picking up when you're taking a walk, or?
Yes, yeah, when I'm taking a walk, cooking, it's something that I've really been thinking about. I wanted to, give back to my community and think of a way that anyone can make artwork with anything in their home. So I thought this would be a great way.
Will you show me what the sweet potato looks like on the other side, on the bottom? I'd love to see what that. Did you dig it out at all?
Nope, I just cut it off when I was cooking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it leaves a nice texture. So I don't dip it in the paint every time. I like to get some variety in the circles. So let me see here. So I'll kind of just let it fade out as I'm printing and then get some darker areas. And one of the nice things about the watercolor is it starts to bleed into each other and leave a nice texture.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what kind of plant this is, but it also leaves a really nice mark. I found this in my yard. It seems like it's some kind of like seed pod.
I don't know. Maybe somebody out there knows. My wife is the botanist in the family. So.
Yeah, I used to know. If anyone knows, that would be good to know. So I'll just dip that in the paint and just kind of make a print with that.
Okay. So, Dominique, what got you started collecting and going through these things? Did you always just collect these? And then you found you could make stuff with them?
Always just collected plants and collected things within my environment for my art practice. But I wanted to like think of a way that, any level of art experience could, something they could make. So I thought this would be like a really great activity.
Yeah, I think having that circle there is a great way to sort of keep you organized. You're not following a perfect pattern, but it's feeling like it's all working together because you had some bones to work on top of, I guess. It's great.
Thank you. So yeah, I also have some other, like a flower that I dried out.
And pressed it?
Yes, yeah. I pressed it, and then that also leaves a nice texture on the page.
Mm.
Dominique, I think the black and white is so elegant and so beautiful. Is there a significance for you to use that black, white, and gray palette?
That is a really good question. I think I just steer towards black and white. It's kind of my style, and it really gives me, a reason not to think too much and overthink it. Sometimes I can be like, oh, this color doesn't go with that color, and it's simple. It's a way to just kind of get lost in it without overthinking color, and yeah. So when I'm done printing some of the objects, I like to go in and just add some shading to the areas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, add some shading. I could add some cross hatching. This is where you can spend a lot of your time and get lost in the lines. It can be a very meditative process as well. So it's also one of my favorite parts about this technique.
That's perfect. We've got just about another minute left or so. But before we move on, you know, if that leaf didn't work out perfect or it didn't come out perfectly as a leaf, what are your thoughts about that? Can you go back in and change it, or do you think just leave it so that it just becomes abstract and less identifiable?
Yeah, so you can go back in with a pencil or a Sharpie. You can make it more identifiable, or you can make it more abstract. Either way, whatever your preference is. I like to add a little bit of lines, but also keep it more abstract as well. But it's really preference.
We have a few questions coming in that we might need to try to address at the end, but one I want to get quickly to you. Dominique, if you could tell the folks again what type of paint you're using.
I am using watercolor, but really any paint would work with this. Calligraphy, acrylic, whatever you might have in your home, give it a try. It might leave a different texture, but.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dominique.
You're welcome.
Great. It's great seeing you as always. We're going to be moving on to the next artist, and that's Linda Locke. Hey, Linda.
Hi.
Linda, I'm excited to see what you're going to do.
Yeah. I am an MFA student as well at Eastern, and I also teach K3 art at elementary. So this is something that I do at all kinds of different levels, but I'm going to show you how to incorporate some of the things that you might find if you go out for a walk. So what I did is I'm always looking for interesting textures. And so I found a little piece of bark that I'm going to show you how to make a rubbing from. And then I also picked some interesting just grasses, and I'm going to use those to create a landscape. So let me move you up this way. Did we get it?
Oh, yes.
You're back.
Excellent.
Okay, good. And I'm almost ready, sorry.
I always love seeing the supplies on an artist table, all of them.
Oh, good. And I've got my watercolor that I'm going to use as well. And I'm going to show you how to do a little bit with the glue. So you can use regular paper for this, like copy paper, but I also like to use business envelopes. And so I've cut them up so that I can pick ones that look really cool. And I like this one especially because it reminds me of bark. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just crayons, and I'm going to lay it down and get a little bit of the texture to go along on the paper. And you don't really have to be very careful. I'm just trying to get some interesting marks.
And these are business envelopes?
Yeah.
Will you show me the other side?
This one is just regular, but some of them, you know.
Oh, I love it.
I have green ones, and there's some that look really good if you want to do ground or grass. And then I have ones that I use for water that I'll show you a little bit too. Those. These are 3 different kinds. You could even use that part for like a window if you were making a house or something. So after I'm done doing the rubbings, then what I do is I take my watercolor, and I have a little bit of it over here. Can you see my brown?
No, but
right here? No?
Oh, there it is. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to put the brown on, and then I'm going to just very lightly, I guess, so you can water it down and do it real light if you like it that way. You can also take it straight off the color if you want.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful not to apply it too dark because it'll cover up the crayon, as far as like the contrast won't be there for you. I also use the grasses, and I'm going to use those with the one that looks kind of good with grass, and I'll put those under there. And you can play around with dark colors.
Now, these are just Crayola crayons?
Yeah, any kind of crayon. I used any kind of wax crayon, really. I had some Prang ones that I used too, so I don't think it has to be any particular kind. And then you can use a variety of different colors with it too. Like I put a little bit of yellow, green in there as well.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back in with my watercolor again with a green or a yellowish green and paint over the top. So I'm basically making all of my paper that I'm going to use for the collage. And the yellow shows up pretty good. And when it dries, then you'll get your contrast again. So what I do once I get those made, they're going to have to dry. So I put those to the side. I have some to show you. And I just put a little bit of blue on the top earlier. I needed that to dry. But I'm going to do a landscape. So what I want to do is I want to start laying down pieces that I've cut. And so I cut this piece and I'll use this for the lake part. And you can use Elmer's glue, or you can use glue stick, or I'm using a matte medium. And what I like to do is I like to put a little bit on a dish, and I use these like cheap plastic things that come in the mail for some sort of deal.
Yeah.
And I use those.
You can use your Blockbuster card again.
Yeah, exactly. Go through your wallet and find anything that you don't use anymore. So I go across like this so that I can get a really nice, even, thin, and then I can lay it down. I might need to put a little bit more on there. If you use a really thin paper, then you shouldn't use a lot of glue. This paper is a little bit heavier, but otherwise it'll kind of go through the.
I noticed you must have used a real minimum amount of water in the watercolors and a minimum amount of glue.
Yes.
Because you have thin paper, right? Because otherwise it would buckle.
Well, I even did a piece earlier with just regular copy paper. And like you say, you just don't want to use too much water. So I start to glue that down. And of course, it's not staying quite down. But I'll show you what I do with the other pieces so that you can see. I like to use maps too.
Wow.
And you can do rubbings on these as well. And I'm going to use a piece like this to be the sand. So I have my lake and my sand, and then I'm going to put in my foreground. I want to have some different kinds of greens. So like the ones that I made before that are dry, I can put these on, and I'd be gluing those. I'm just going to show you how you can play around with the composition, because if we won't have time for me to glue every single piece down. So you can kind of move them around to see where you want them to lay.
And we still have a minute left. Would you lower the camera so that I could, because this looks so cool. I love seeing this. I love the materials.
I can't get it to.
Oh, it's all right. I messed up.
That's all right. Here, I'll take it off and just show it to you. Does that work?
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then I also have trees that I forgot to show you about too, because I showed you those earlier. And I'll use those to kind of move around to see how I might want to do them. Like how I want the composition to be. Like, do I want it to be behind? Do I want it to be farther away? Do I want it to be up close so that it'll overlap?
Linda, you always have the best materials. So I don't think anybody would think about using these envelopes, right? What are some other heads up before we have to switch over to our next artist? What's a heads up about these objects, or why?
Well, you know, they come into my house and I'm constantly recycling things, and I think, well, what could I use this for? And you know, you can even use water food coloring if you don't want to use, you know, if you don't have paint at home. I did some of the envelopes by dipping them in food coloring, and it it works pretty good too. But I just feel like I want to use things and not have them go to waste and make them into something beautiful.
That's
Linda,
wonderful.
I'm gonna squeak one more question in there.
Okay.
Where did you find your maps is a question that's coming in.
Usually thrifting. I can find a lot of maps, and I save things, so that's another way. But you can even find them in like the Observer or something like that, where you could just take out a little piece of a map. Anything that kind of looks interesting.
Thank you
catches
so
my
much.
eye. Thank you.
Linda, thank you. We've got to move on.
Thank you.
Deborah Golden.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Deborah Golden, and I'm an alum. I got my MFA at Eastern a long, long time ago in watercolor and drawing. And then I went back several years later and got a couple teaching certificates.
Okay.
So I've been teaching ages 2.5 through 94, between teaching at high schools, at Eastern for a while, and the Art Center, seniors, the Ipsy Library, and currently I teach at Washtenaw Community College.
Excellent.
I'm going to be making a little book today, and what it does is it actually helps combine my watercolor, my collage, my looking at the world around me, and my desire to have an art that gives a message and some meaning. So here's the simple part, okay? You got a piece of paper and then you fold it. And in this case, I just took some watercolor paper, but if you've got some heavy paper, drawing paper, as long as it stands up a little bit, you're okay. I've used printmaking paper, and then I have a cover. This is called an accordion book, by the way. It folds like an accordion. And then I'm going to take a little piece of cardboard that is just about the size of the paper, but just a scooch bigger. And I'm going to glue it on. Just give myself a lovely X. We're going to pretend the glue worked, okay? And then boom. And I have my other little version where I have my cardboard. It's nice because it's going to stand up. I've got this in 4. You can make them 6 panels long. You can make them 8 panels long. I have an accordion book that I made a few years ago about a street in Detroit that's 8 feet long. And I showed that at the RAC, where I've been involved for years, in the gallery and upstairs in the theater. So special place. I've got the little book, and what do I want to say inside it? I have been teaching watercolor, and one of the favorite things people like to do is flowers. And this is also kind of documenting what I'm seeing outside and some of the beauty that I have in this time of captivity. I'm also a certified plantaholic. But it's true, and it's therapeutic. My approach to the watercolor, because so many people like to go so fussy and detailed, and yeah, I can do that, is how I can have people loosen up and just do it really fast. So don't get all intimidated by, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this and what's it going to look like? Here's my paint. By the way, I got my messy palette. Yes, I do clean it, but I got my basic colors. And I have some gorgeous alizarin here.
And it's just watercolor?
This is watercolor, just old watercolor. And for illustrating your book, use watercolor. Use markers. Whatever. And I'll combine writing and stuff. But I'm going to show a little bitty bachelor button. Here's one I did before. But I'm going to take a little puddle of this blue. And it's important that I've got a nice, juicy, wet puddle. I've got this wonderful little skinny brush right here called a bushy round, but having nice brushes is really important. And believe it or not, I can find these things locally. You know, some things I order, but yeah, I can go to Michael's or Joann's or whatever, my limited choices, and get some of these things. And then I take that puddle and then I pull that little paint out in short little strokes so it gets in the wrist. Then I'm going to give a little bit of green and swim in some yellow. And there's the little base of the flower. I'm not going to have it touch because if I do, then that color is going to bleed into it. But there's that, and then I'm going to zing. There's a lovely little stem. Okay.
So sweet.
And I can do more and more of those with this little flower, and I can add to it. You can build these up. I started just doing a little circle and spinning that circle around and just boom, 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 circle, 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 and let those colors go into each other. I dropped some paint. Oh, horrors, right? Spilled paint. So I did a little dabbing and decided to make those little speckles a little bit more important. And since I've got that, I'm going to add another little flower, and there's just a little oval, and I'm going to repeat around it, change the color up a little bit, and well, let's stick another one right here, and maybe a little bit more red. And then they're going to want a stem, and shoop. So these are fun ones where it's small, don't be intimidated by it, and then I can take those and I can paste those in the book. I can go ahead and just paint directly in the book too. I'll show you a couple examples. And then this one, I've got some of these, and I'm blanking on the name of them right now, but it's reminding me of a fireworks. Yeah?
I can't remember, but I know which ones you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sort of like the onion.
Yeah, it's allium. So I've got the lines coming out, and I don't have them solid because I want it to breathe. So I'm just going to make some little X's and keep doing some little X's over and over and over and over on it. And this is kind of fun. When I'm teaching, I try and break it down into, you know, what are the shapes, what are the lines, what are the colors, so it's not this overwhelming thing. And, you know, when you're teaching little kids or you're teaching any age, seriously, it's like, how do you do that? And they go, it's magic. And it's like, no, it's paint.
So we've got just about a minute left, but I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you, Deborah. So a lot of times the way that you're painting these is you're breaking down the plants to their parts, right?
Yeah.
So I guess just sort of taking what you know and using that as a starting point to make them, right?
Yeah, right. I will think about that basic shape of the flower. Is it a cup? So here's my little ready, set, go collage where I've got a cup shape, and then I just fringe it to make the tulip.
Tulip, yeah.
And so, you know, just kind of fun little things like that. I can bounce on some different circles and whatnot. But I'm thinking about what is that basic shape of things. Where I'm showing where I put the little thing down, I've got one here I want to show you. I did ages ago, and it's a lot bigger, really long. I put some ribbon in between the paper and the cover. And what that does, it enables you to tie the book shut, and it becomes this very much of a gift. And this one's got watercolor and collage and chasing circles, so pulling in all of this fun with meaning.
Now, you said at the beginning that you were using cardboard.
Yep.
So that's some nice cardboard. Where are you getting your cardboard from?
I have all these little tiny mats, so when I'm selling some of my prints of my work or just doing some little tiny paintings, I've got a place, creative bags, where I can order the mat board from. Other times I'm going with what do I have around the house? And thank you for mentioning that, because we can be creative. And so here I've got a tea box.
Oh, yes.
And there is no reason I cannot just take this and then use that and then boom, throw something on that, build up some different papers and have a fun cover. I'll even vary the inside of it so it's not all rectangular, but make it curvy sometimes. And it's a lot of fun. Just do the basic and then you start playing and coming up with more. And like this one, another accordion where I've got my watercolor and my stars, and then I threw in some words.
Oh, it's so much. There's so much there, Deborah. Thank you so much for sharing
Building
this.
color, yeah.
There's probably a million questions about how to get to that. But unfortunately, we got to move on to our next one. We'll see. We may come back at the end about and link back to any questions.
Thank you.
But Deborah, thank you so much.
Yay.
Now we're moving on to Sonia Craftston. Hi, Sonia.
Hi, Brian. Hi, all. Thanks so much for coming. I'm excited to add on to what all these amazing women and Brian have encouraged us with so far. I want to say that I am a people pleaser, and so often I feel like, oh no, someone judging me. I can be a little bit afraid to make mistakes. And one of the things recently that has been a part of my process is believing that all of you out there are for me and supporting me. And I also want to say that I'm in here supporting you and encouraging you. And so much about this for us as artists is we're getting to make art, which we love to do. And we're trying to take some of the pressure off, right, to do it quickly. And we hope that's the same for you, that you can be inspired and go from here and make stuff and share it, send it to people, post it on your site, post it to Riverside Art Gallery, because it's such an amazing thing to collaborate. And I know with the MFA students that I'm with at EMU, we are all in the same hall, and so we can run down and connect with each other when it's not COVID time and you're not allowed to get in your studio. But that's going to happen again. So anyway, so today, to build on what you guys have been listening to so far, hearing, I want to show you some things about setting up maybe a background space, thinking about what you can do to create really fun, just whole kind of experiences. And so I'm going to twist my view to go down and see if we can get this.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you, and I hope everyone gets to see all the different people. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I have been working on before we start, to give you an end view. This is my COVID mask. So one of the things, I often have people and I often have different things within my pieces, but I start my pieces this way by taking a ton of water. I have a brush, like Deborah mentioned, having a nice brush. This is a Princeton Aqua Elite. You can get them in a pack of a few. Ooh, and I already have some red color to start me off because my brush was working earlier. You get a whole lot of water on your paper to start. And hopefully everybody has at their home table salt. Table salt is great. This is just in my little container. And then the other thing, rubbing alcohol is often something that people have in their house. If you don't, if you live in my neighborhood, I live in co-housing, so you can just yell out, and some of the people on this call in 2 seconds will be at my door with rubbing alcohol, which is an awesome part of that. I know Mary Beth and Miriam are listening. So you can get a bunch of color, and the color that I like to use, this is a watercolor, but there is this cool thing called liquid watercolor. So Dr. Phil Martin's Hydrus, they're just like an inkier version. And it's nice for spreading big amounts of color. And so what we're going to do here is we are going to, like we're making dinner, we'll sprinkle some salt, yum, 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 up here.
Now what paper are you using, Sonia, to be able to handle that much water and moisture?
What's that?
What paper are you using?
You know, this is a watercolor paper, and it's really cheap. If you get those pads of like 100 or 150, I think I have the Strathmore, which is one of the cheaper versions.
Yeah.
The other thing, so here I also, because I dumped half of a bottle of alcohol on one of my practices, I got my dropper out, but you can just use from the bottle. But this is the rubbing alcohol, and you can see how it kind of makes these really cool sort of, I don't know, I'll say their eyes or faces, or they could be anything. But this is sort of the beginning for this thing that you can try. And hopefully everyone's got those two things at home, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this is gorgeous and incredible. Like it's as though you've made a whole painting for us in 12 seconds. And I think one of the things that's working so well is that you limited your color palette, and then you just create a range of values because of all of those ways of separating the ink or the watercolor.
Totally. Because later on you can play. But I agree what Dominique had said about sort of not getting too overwhelmed is really an important piece. And you can always come back in. And so if you're making a mandala, or if you're doing what Claire did with the plastic wrap and you have a background colors, right, that you can play with, this is really easy. Or if you want to use with what Linda had said, if you have other patterns you want to make or blues, you can use something like this and then cut them out. So the next thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to just show you some that have dried. That's just salt and alcohol. And it's kind of like an endless amount of play. And if you're a child like I am, or you have children like I do, this is so magical. You just think like, I can't believe it. And one of the tricks is that you have to let it dry. And so when you're making your Made in 60, you may like put a pause on your timer, let it dry, and then come back. And then, so other things that you can do with the colors is use all your recycled materials, which has been a cool theme of the night. Wax paper. This is wax paper and old string. And I actually did this earlier with water, and I just stuck these down. So I'm just going to pull it off like it's magic to show you. This is wax paper and cheesecloth.
I love that.
So we have this whole form, right, to play with. Here's another one. I'm just going to pull off some cheesecloth and wax paper. So you can see, and this one has some salt on the bottom.
That's great.
So you're starting, yeah, with something that's kind of interesting. There's another one, and this is sort of this plasticky stuff that we all get from everywhere. So these are some things that are interesting. And then another thing that you can do, of course, because we've talked about plastic wrap, is you can use plastic wrap. And so stick down a lot of water, your colors, and then I don't know if you guys recognize this, but you get tiny sometimes plastic wrap. There's big size and there's medium size. And so here, making that just be your starting point is another thing. So you have this cool palette. And then what I like to do from there, and this is where a lot of the fun for me comes in, and I'm going to lift this up so you can kind of see, is I like to then look for forms inside of the pieces that have come, or I can sometimes come with an idea. But this right here is it started out as just the colors, the yellows and the browns and the greens. And so I saw figures and trees in mine. And so for some reason, I saw a lot of bearded men. This is a bearded man. This is some sort of a bearded man. I kept seeing them. There's like a bearded man up here. This must be some sort of theme. I have this sort of tree over here that I'm like sort of building up. And then I also, for some reason, when I at one point was in this church, like one of those old churches, if you've ever been to one, where they have all these heads sitting on top. I think they're supposed to be, I've always have this thing of like, there's heads above me watching, and they could be ominous and dark and judging, or they could be like, yes, you can do this. Let's go. You're an artist, whatever form you take, keep going and supporting you. And the other thing that I really like other people saying, and I also appreciate, is if I mess up, so say I drew something I didn't like, then like I can take some of my forms and be like, oh, you know what, there's bubbles flying through the air, or there's a tree, I'm going to get my next tree, I'm going to stick it right on top of there, because there's so much freedom and possibility to play. And so that is really what the goal is. And so then I can keep going.
Sonia, that was fabulous. We do have to move on, but there's one quick question.
Please.
That came in. When do you put the wax paper and other things down into the watercolor?
Yeah, so you do it right away. So just like we did for the salt when it was all wet, you're going, and then wax paper, whatever color, you're going to stick it down so you can add, and the plastic wrap. So you just get your colors on there and then you stick it down. And then again, the key is you have to kind of let it sit for a while and then pull it up once it's dry, which is maybe an hour or two. So put it on tonight, go to bed, wake up, and you will have a beautiful space to work with.
Cool.
And that's that. Thanks for
Awesome.
asking.
Sonia, that is so inspiring. I think there's like so
Thanks.
much there. There's so many cool processes and techniques and materials and stuff that we have. That's wonderful. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
We're going to be moving to our last artist, Alexa Dietz. Hey, Alexa.
Hi. How's it going?
Good.
Hello,
It's
hello.
Good. Thanks for having me. I have a lot of different materials in front of me right now. I've been managing while we've been going through this chat, but I wanted to just show you where I started. However, I'll start by introducing myself and get the sun out of my face.
Oh.
I graduated from Eastern Sculpture Program in 2014 with a BFA, and I've been working for the past 6 years on just getting back to work. It's a process. So this has been really inspiring for me. I've been able to take some time to really focus on like how I pick apart things and collect things and where that could go. I'm excited to say that I think that I might be starting a new body of work right now.
Oh.
Anyway, I'll show you some of my collections where I started, and I hope that you can see this here.
Yes.
This is the one that I've shared with RAC for sale. Just a stick I found from my porch, and I started taking apart a coffee bean bag. I've got about 20 of them right now. You can get them at your local coffee shops usually. They're really good for growing vegetables in, a lot of different things. You could use them as mats in your kitchen or something like that. But anyway, basically what I started doing as far as collecting this material was I just wanted to be able to essentially like break the stick off and keep it with me in case I needed rope for something someday. But it was a really, the biggest, I think, lesson as far as like sculpture goes, for me anyway, is that it's a really, really slow process. So the last thing I thought I would ever be doing, by the way, is taking apart a coffee bean bag or working with fibers. However, it's been really fun to sit here and figure out like how it's put together by taking it apart. If you look at the very end of some of these, and this one I had to turn inside out, they're all constructed of like different kinds of material. But look, if I just pull one of these strings,
No,
sometimes
I
the
can't see
string
it.
will just, I'm so sorry. Okay.
It's all right.
I've got a lot. No, it's okay. If you just pull one of these strings, sometimes these chains will just come apart one by one. Look, the whole thing. And then you can start undoing the whole bag. So I started by just trying to make this bag bigger, like a bigger panel. And then some of it had holes in it. So then I started to take apart just these strings themselves. And then here I've got to close this chat box window. That's why I can't see the video. Here I've got a whole bunch of that material I've collected. And then I started to just tie this together, and I've since put it onto a spool. And I literally sit here like a grandma and pull a piece. You know, if it's too short, I like let it go, but tie it together. Sometimes this material breaks. See, I'll just make another one.
I feel like the color and the sensibility of that breakage in the fiber is such a nice cousin to natural specimens.
Sometimes it just doesn't work. So I'm going to stop using this as an example right now. I have a lot more to show you, but you know, the first part of the twine that I was showing, I was tying together, kind of like went on air haphazardly, and then as I was wrapping it around this like very structural form, I realized that I could get a lot of knots and like beautiful structure, contrast. I mean, to me, this looks kind of like a birch tree, and this is turning into its own object, even though I'm just trying to collect it to use for something else. So that's an example A. I'm literally just lining it up and pushing the fibers up as I go. So that's one example, but while I was sitting here and like inspired by the other artists part of this chat, what other materials can we use? Again, like here's an onion bag. And the other day I took apart a sweet potato bag, and I realized once I took off all the other markings, we've got more material to work with once you twist it.
Oh,
you can do something with that, you know? So there's that. And then we've been, at my house anyway, taking all of our pants and turning them into shorts. So I've got tons of other fabric here T-shirt is really interesting to work with. I'll show you that in a second. I was trying to work with my pants earlier, so I've got a pant leg, and then this is kind of complicated to use as the same process with my coffee bean bag here and the burlap and the jute or whatever it is. But just to give an example, what I've known for material to do is run along a line as soon as you make a cut. So if I had to prep a little bit because, like I said, sculpture is kind of a slow process for me anyway. You can just pull it in certain parts. That's how you make shorts. And then I have an example of how I tied it together. And I would probably just try and wrap this around a bigger object because these are bigger threads, maybe twist it a bit for contrast. And then, yeah, that's it for the jean material, but this like shirt sleeve was really interesting because I love these cotton. This cotton I did the same thing to.
Yeah.
And here I have like a whole form that could even be on its own piece somehow. I could tie these together, but it's so much easier to pull this all the way to the end. It's satisfying. It's like popping bubbles on bubble wrap. And then I could take this and tie this together and wrap around another object. So just to give you an example though, again, if I flip down, I have been using the jute twine. I found this hydrangea and even dried, smells lovely, I'll have you know. Don't know where that's gonna go, but I was thinking about incorporating other natural materials, and then you have like a little dry bouquet. This is like a little avocado pit, like, you know, and actually this white part on this pine cone is another piece of the coffee bag too. So I've got a lot to work with here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alexa.
Yeah.
Those are great, Alexa. How would you display those? Would you put them on your wall? Would you hang them?
That's a great question. I think I could hang them on my wall, but likely I would probably just build a little box for them and keep them on a pedestal. Oh, by the way, for these materials, like this is pretty, I usually work in metal. I would love to cast this in bronze.
Oh yeah.
To make it more permanent. You know, literally this whole thing would just like burn up, and you know, it could be more of a permanent sculpture. That's what I would work. So this is a model. Thanks.
Alexa, thank you so much. Right, I'm so glad that we got to see a sculptural perspective on how to make stuff at home on this stuff. It's wonderful. It's so nice seeing you again. And that's our last artist for today. Before everybody leaves, I'd like to hand it off to Elisa Guyton.
Thank you so much, Brian. I am Elisa Guyton, and I am the Executive Director for Riverside Arts Center. And first and foremost, I have to thank everyone for being here today, for the artists who put all their hard work and energy in bringing this to you. It's a team effort, and if I didn't have these amazing people with me, I'm crying right now. But for those of you who are super excited to purchase one of the pieces from these amazing artists, you can go to our website, and I'm actually going to, I just put it in the chat box. It's riversidearts.org, made in 60 minutes. And if you go there, every piece that's available, you can purchase for that flat rate of $50, and we will get it sent out to you as soon as we can. I hope you are as inspired as I am to go out in nature, bring some items back with you on your walks, and get creative. Now I'm gonna send it off to Sandra for any last minute comments or questions, but thank you all so much. Sandra.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I'm incredibly grateful to our artists and to Brian Spolins for moderating. I most of all, I appreciate all of you who registered for the event, who stayed with us for the last hour. We've gotten so many encouraging comments coming in. It's I appreciate all the pats on the back and kind words. But really now it's your turn. Now you know, and my turn, and all of ours to go out and keep making something beautiful, and to remember that moment of making is good in that moment, but it's even better if you can kind of take that with you and think about what you're making all the time, right? Thanks for being here tonight.
Excellent.
And I'll say, if anyone wants to share them, will you tell them how we share them?
Oh, absolutely. You can go to our website and you can submit. There's a form at the bottom of the Made in 60 Minutes, and you can submit your artwork, and we will start an online gallery on our website for you. So inspire us with your work, please.
Hey.
Excellent. All right, everyone, I'm going to end the meeting. I appreciate you so much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Happy making.
Happy making.
Making.